Major developments in the Karmelo Anthony Austin Metcalf story. The teen who is accused of first-degree murder is set to be freed after they have issued a huge bail reduction. He also lost his lawyer, so they're changing up his legal defense, which is very interesting. And apparently the police do have video of the encounter, which leads many to speculate. If there was actual video of this encounter and it was self-defense, they would have dropped that video footage ASAP. Now, I don't know if that's absolute, but I kind of lean towards that. Right now, you have a massive cultural divide on the issue of the Memorial Centennial High School stabbing incident with Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. On the right, overwhelmingly, they are saying this kid did it. It's first degree. It's premeditated, and he should get death, life, or the death penalty, life in prison, or 25 years to life. Now, the prosecutors have already stated he's 17 and they're charging him as a minor, so the death penalty and life in prison are off the table. On the other side, prominent liberals are arguing it was a clear-cut case of self-defense, not unlike Kyle Rittenhouse, when in fact it was quite a bit unlike Kyle Rittenhouse. However, still, we don't know the full details of the case, but I do have the police report. So I will give you the quick update. And for those that are not familiar with the story, I'll read for you the responding police officer's statement as to what he gathered from witnesses and what we think we know thus far. For those that are not familiar with that story, you may have heard it a little bit. The story of the altercation under the tent at a high school track meet where one individual where Anthony stabbed Metcalf in the heart with a knife over being asked to leave the seating area. Now, of course, it's led to great contention. And I will say the important thing we can do first, give you the quick updates on his legal team. And before we get into the greater details on the video evidence and what may or may not be happening, I'll just give you the quick police report statement for the general idea of what police are claiming had happened based on witness testimony. The Daily Mail reports a teen who fatally stabbed a 17-year-old boy at a Texas track meet had his $1 million bond reduced to $250,000. Anthony, 17, was in court as he faces a first-degree murder charge for the killing of Austin Metcalf, who died in his twin brother's arms after being stabbed in the heart. When he posts bond, he will have to wear an ankle monitor and cannot leave his parents' home without permission from Judge Angela Tucker. I like how they made her, is her name Judge? It says Judge Angela Tucker. Anthony's defense lawyers asked for the bond to be lowered to $150,000, citing his age and a lack of a criminal history. Prosecutors had asked Anthony's father, Andrew Anthony, why he could not use the more than $400,000 in donated funds for his son's defense to pay the original $1 million bond. Andrew Anthony told the court that he has no access to the donated funds and can't afford to pay his bond. Anthony's father was also questioned in court over an incident in the teen's high school back in February that involved an altercation assault. It's not clear whether Anthony was an aggressor, victim, or witness in the incident, which was handled internally by Frisco's independent school district. This is where there were a bunch of fake stories. We don't know what's true, but this statement about a previous assault, we don't know what it is. Some have argued that the reason Karmelo was carrying a knife illegally in the school is because of previous fights in the school. No idea. And I don't want to speculate. Not yet. We can speculate maybe a little bit. I want to give you the quick updates in the news because the dude also lost his lawyer. They say his former lawyers, Billy Clark and Kim T. Cole, confirmed to WFAA Saturday that they will no longer be representing Anthony, while the Next Generation Action Network, a nonprofit supporting the teen, announced the legal change. An arrest report says a confrontation between the two star football players began when Austin and Karmelo, when he was sitting under another team's pop-up tent and told him to move. Now, I don't care for what they say over the Daily Mail pertaining to a quick snippet describing the event, because I know it's hotly contested. So I'd rather just give you the police report. Arresting officer Eduardo Cortés telling us what we saw happen. And then I believe there was one other officer. So there's two principal circumstances that are matter here. And of course, the information for those who don't know. His name is Anthony Sincere Karmelo. I believe his middle name is Sincere. I don't know. He is 5'9", 130 pounds, black, age 17, single, Baton Rouge, and he's a cashier at HEB. He's a cashier at HEB. How about that? Charged with first-degree felony murder. Officer Eduardo Cortés It's a long breakdown of Cortez's statement, and it doesn't actually talk to any of the witnesses. It simply states that he left his office. He came to the meet. He says, the individual that was pointed out to me he says, once I arrived on the north side of the bleachers, an adult male who was on the track pointed out the suspect. The individual that was pointed out to me was a black male wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt and dark colored Nike pants. The suspect at this point was at the track on the north end. There was a chain link fence that separated me from the suspect. I gave the suspect instructions to keep his hand in the air. During this time, the suspect said verbally out loud, I was protecting myself. It should be noted that I had not questioned him about the incident when he made that comment. I asked him if he had any weapons, and he said no. I patted him down for weapons while he and I were walking along the fence. I did not look at any on his person. He says I instructed him to continue towards an area with an opening in the fence. While walking him off the track, the suspect also said, quote, he put his hands on me. I then detained the suspect, handcuffed behind his back, had him sit on the ground. Officer A. Ritchie arrived on scene. I conducted another pat down of this person and then searched he gave me consent. No weapons were located. While he sat on the ground, I advised that I had the alleged suspect. The suspect then responds and says, I'm not alleged, I did it. Next, Officer Ritchie and I walked back to patrol vehicle. As we were walking to the squad car, the suspect was emotional and said, he put his hands on me. I told him not to. I did not question the suspect about the incident while he was escorted to the patrol vehicle. Officer Ritchie conveyed a similar statement where he said, I am not alleged, I did it. Now, I think that's interesting. A lot of people have pointed out, see, that proves it. He did it. Guys, it's a police statement. We need the body camera footage. It is likely, I'd say 99% true. That's actually what he said. I doubt 2 officers were wrong in their reports. So he's saying he straight up stabbed him. The family has claimed self-defense, although people on the right are saying there's no way it's self-defense. The next important statement, I believe, we have, I don't know if it's from Wetzel Taylor. It may be, yes. Wetzel Taylor was the individual who arrived on scene and I believe found the actual weapon. He writes, Wetzel Taylor was assigned to work patrol in the city of Frisco at approximately 10:02 hours. I responded to the report of a stabbing at David Kuykendall Stadium, located at 88257 7th Street. The original call notes stated an athlete had been stabbed in the chest and the suspect that stabbed the victim goes to Centennial High School. Athletic trainers were on site and were providing care to the victim and advised he was not conscious and not breathing. The notes also indicated the suspect was a black male with a goatee and short hair wearing Centennial gear. I arrived on scene at approximately 10:06 hours. When I arrived on scene, I grabbed a roll of crime scene tape from my trunk and proceeded to the visitors' bleachers, where dispatch advised the victim was. While I was walking towards the visitors' bleachers, I was approached by a witness who identified himself as redacted, only the initial J. Began telling me what happened, and I asked him where the stabbing occurred. Redacted advised it happened under the Memorial High School pop-up tent in the visitors' bleachers. I immediately informed Sergeant Otis where the witness stated the stabbing occurred and gave him the crime scene tape to start securing the crime scene. I then had Redacted move the walkway under the visitors' bleachers out of the rain to further speak with me. The following is a summary of my contact with Redacted. Redacted advised he was sitting under the Memorial High School pop-up tent with his team and was near the victim. Austin, the suspect, who was later identified as Karmelo Anthony, was from Centennial High School and was sitting under the Memorial High School tent. Austin had told Anthony that he needed to move out from under their team's tent. Anthony grabbed his bag, Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell Austin, quote, touch me and see what happens. No one really thought Anthony had any weapons in the bag, and Austin proceeded to touch Anthony, and then Anthony told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move, and Anthony pulled out what Redacted recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. Austin began grabbing his chest and telling everyone to get help. Redacted advised he did not know Anthony's name, but stated another Memorial Track member, whose initials are E and P, was friends with Anthony, and he could identify Anthony. Redacted described Anthony as a black male, skinny, with possibly a goatee, short puffy hair, and wearing a Centennial High School clothing. This concluded my contact with Redacted. I then was instructed to start a crime scene log. I retrieved a crime scene log from my patrol vehicle and began starting the crime scene log. I was later relieved by Officer Schultz, who took over the crime scene log and cleared the scene. So these are the first initial statements that came out from the story. Now, there have been a lot of false reports from random people on X. And the challenging thing, I think, for all of us is we don't know what actually happened. I don't know why, for the life of me, there are people adamant to assert that they know what happened, with even Matt Walsh making a video incorrectly claiming my audience had turned on me, which is just like, come on, dudes. Shock, sensational nonsense. It's actually relatively divided. There are certainly some people who are upset. I think on X, I lost a couple thousand followers. I don't know. Gained a bunch more. I don't really care to think about that stuff. Like, I don't go and track these numbers. What matters is what happened. We don't know. We know some. What we have is a statement from police. Video footage may exist, and we have witness statements from the Memorial Track team. The gist of the story we've gleaned from the police statement is that Karmelo Anthony was sitting under what I would refer to as a pop-up gazebo. The reason why I refer to that way is because I've seen many posts from people indicating that Karmelo walked inside an enclosed space. When people say he went into a tent, many people believe that means there was an enclosed space where a team was hanging out. I think it's important to clarify this was a pop-up gazebo, meaning it's open on all sides. The other thing that's important to note from the police report is why Karmelo Anthony was there. Two reasons are stated in the police report. This is not evidence, this is not proof, but there are two potentialities. It was raining, as the police stated, and Karmelo Anthony was friends with one of the Memorial High School track members. This could explain why there was an altercation. They told him to leave. It was raining, and he was friends with someone on the team. This could have been why. I don't know. But again, I will stress, these are in the police report. Just read the police report, because I'm not saying literally everybody or all the conservatives. I'm seeing people on X argue Karmelo trespassed. He didn't. This was an open track meet, and he was sitting under a gazebo. You can argue he shouldn't be sitting under the gazebo because the gazebo belonged to them and limited space and it was raining. By all means, make all the arguments you want. It wasn't private property. He wasn't barred from being there. The other high school kids did not have the authority to remove him. This was not, as we understand it, from the police report, closed private space. It was an open track meet between two high schools. Why was Karmelo under their tent? According to the police report, which I'll say again, EP was friends with Anthony, and he was they said this. They said he did not know Anthony, but said another Memorial Track member, EP, was friends with him. So that could explain why he was there. I don't know what happened. I think it's likely that they're getting him on first-degree murder because of the felony murder rule. That is, you can't bring a knife to a school. It's a felony. He then killed a guy, doesn't matter why, and this would be felony murder. And they're going to say it's first degree. For first-degree murder in a typical context, you would need premeditation. That typically means that he went to that track or to that tent with the intention of killing an individual. The premeditation could occur at any point. That could mean that while he was at high school, he already had the knife in his bag. Someone said, hey, that guy's insulting your girlfriend, and he walks over there. That's premeditated. Second degree would be passion or premeditation in the moment. That is, once the altercation started, Karmelo decided he was going to kill this guy, and that was his intent. These things normally would be very, very difficult to prove, especially considering he was friends with one of the Memorial team members and that it was raining. Those are the arguments defense will bring up, and you need only reasonable doubt. Again, you can believe whatever you want. So in this regard, it looks like outside of the felony murder rule, manslaughter would be the play from the prosecution. We will see when they release what kind of knife it was, if the knife actually was an illegal knife. The knife could have been legal. So you can't bring weapons to school, but if he had like a shop class utility blade from hardware class or something, this is the point I made that Matt Walsh brought up and criticized those polite. I jokingly mentioned, it was facetious in that maybe he was at a cooking class and had Japanese cutlery in his bag. Probably not, right? He probably had a knife for the intent of stabbing people, which is why I think manslaughter likely will be the case. But that would still require that he believed he was acting in defense of himself. The argument from the prosecution is going to be, you have no reason to use a knife against a group of kids who are telling you to get out from under their open air tent, their gazebo. And thus, it may escalate beyond manslaughter. I don't know I don't know. I think manslaughter is likely the play, except for the felony murder rule. Now, the Post Millennial says this, which is where things get interesting. The argument is there's video of this. And if there's video of this, you'd think they'd release it, unless it makes Karmelo look guilty. Like he escalated the problem himself. Like the young guys like Austin and his brother were not actually being aggressive with him. In which case, I actually agree with this. If Carmelo Anthony's family had video that showed he was innocent and they're raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, they would publish that footage. I believe so. They said authorities have reportedly collected video evidence from the confrontation between the two Texas teens that resulted in a fatal stabbing during the high school track meet in Frisco. Now, the family may not have the footage. It may be from the victim and his friends and the other Memorial Trek members who turned it over to police, in which case they wouldn't release it for any reason. They want this guy to go to prison. They don't want anything getting out that could compromise that, whether anyone's at what no matter what it is. So we don't know entirely for sure, but I do think it would be leaked. The question, of course, is what will happen when this goes to trial? We don't know. I warn the people on the right, and I don't care. I will say this. It is an absurdity to assert knowledge of an event for which video has not yet been released. We have, I think, like 10 body cameras that have recorded all of the aftermath, which likely will get released. We've got reported video evidence, and we've not even heard witness testimony from anybody else except for these track members just yet, the initial people on scene. We are going to hear about the previous assaults. They may say it's not relevant. We're going to hear from Karmelo himself, potentially. They probably won't put him on the stand. We don't know. I say let's see that video. But I think it's silly that there are people on the right arguing there's no argument of self-defense. There's always an argument of self-defense. It's just the matter of whether or not someone's going to actually agree that it was. It is insane to me that there are people on X right now saying falsely that he walked into an enclosed tent and they politely asked him to leave and he stabbed the guy. There was a lot that went down that we don't know. Notably, he said, touch me and see what happens. He was touched and nothing happened. And then he escalated by saying, punch me and see what happens, and then was grabbed and then stabbed. Again, I think on the surface, it looks like a manslaughter case. That is, he wasn't intending to murder, it would appear. We don't know for sure, but it could range from second degree to manslaughter. I do agree with Matt Walsh's statement, though. So manslaughter would be he intended to cause harm but not kill. Meaning you killed a guy and you were trying to hurt him. Matt Walsh made a good point. He said he didn't fear for his life. He felt disrespected. And I believe Matt actually hits the nail on the head with the hammer with this one. If it was raining and they approached him and said, get out from under our pop-up, yeah, he's going to be like, no, I'm not going to stand in the rain. You can't make me. In which case, it's not his pop-up. They set it up. Even if he is friends with someone, they tell him to get out. It's ours. He was very much disrespected by that because they were going to make this guy stand in the rain, and he didn't want to do that. And so he decided to escalate it. That's why I think conviction is likely, but there may be a plea agreement. Now, of course, you've got people on X who don't care for nuance, and it's just fervent. And Matt Walsh's audience and everybody else's audience are not watching my videos on the matter. But I will warn the right of this. I think there's a clear difference between Rittenhouse in this case. Many have said that on the left, they're saying, Kyle Rittenhouse, he wasn't supposed to be there. He crossed state lines. He shouldn't have had the weapon. Please. Rosenbaum threatened to kill him several times earlier in the night. Chased after him, and then someone fired a gun in the air. Kyle thought he was being shot at. He turned around, and the guy tried grabbing his gun, but did not touch him. The argument I brought up was that people have said you can't use lethal force against someone for touching you, and that is not correct. Context matters. Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't touched. He used lethal force, but he had reasonable fear of death. I believe that this, in any other normal circumstance, would be manslaughter. With the felony murder rule, it's upgraded to first degree. He's likely going to get in trouble for this. You can't escalate a circumstance by which you have the means to escape. He's not going to, unless he was surrounded on all sides, which means let's see what the video's got. That being said, I warn the right of getting reverse Rittenhoused. We don't know what the videos will show. And if they have video of the confrontation because kids are filming everything, it may show this dude premeditated murder. It may show him standing up and getting in the face of Austin Metcalf, escalating the whole thing, and he was only touched. Let me put it this way. There's a million one ways to interpret the scenario. Imagine that they walked up to Anthony and said, get out of here. Anthony stands up, walks within 2 inches of him and says, do something about it. Touch me and see what happens. We don't know who initiated, who was the aggressor. The assumption on the right is that Anthony was. The assumption on the left is that Austin was. Austin's the victim, plain and simple. But we don't know what the video is going to show. So we're going to have to wait and see. If the right comes out and adamantly asserts an incorrect narrative, and this dude ends up walking for some reason, the left is going to run around screaming this all day and night, reverse Rittenhouse, something like that effect. But again, don't look at me. I wasn't there. I only read the police report, and I only read you a little bit because seriously, it would take like an hour to go through the full police report and all the witnesses and everything, which is pretty crazy. But I'm wondering why the video hasn't been released. Honestly, who had the video and why didn't they publish it? My question for the right, if it's the Memorial Track team members who had the video, why don't they publish it? I mean, I can think of an obvious reason. It would compromise the case and it might help this dude get off. They would argue it's biased to the jury. So it makes sense. If the Anthony family had the video footage and it showed that he was acting in self-defense, or at the very least he wasn't the aggressor, they'd publish it. Unless, of course, it makes him look bad. All in all, I would say it's not looking good for Karmelo Anthony. I think he felt disrespected. I think he escalated the circumstance. We'll see. I'll leave it there, my friends. Stay tuned. We got more segments coming up through the day, and we will see you all shortly.